This is the game played between Bobby Fischer and Gligorich, Yugoslavian Grandmaster in Candidates Tournament 1959. The opening is a Sicilian defense. Let us go straight away into the game. E4, C5, Knight F3, Knight C6, D4, C into D, Knight into D4, Knight F6, Knight C3, D6, Bishop C4, Bishop D7, Bishop B3 is played. If instead of Bishop B3, if Bishop E3, let us go back and see. If Bishop E3, Knight G4, instead of Bishop B3, let us go back again. Bishop G5, E6, Bishop into F6, Queen into F6, black castles on Queen side, Knight into F6, King B8, or instead of Bishop B3, castling on King side, G6, Knight into C6, Bishop into C6, or B into C6, F4, or after Bishop into C6, Bishop G5, Bishop G7, Knight D5, etc. Let us go back and see what happened in the game. That is move number 7. He played Bishop B3, 6, F3. Fischer played F3. The only other move for any advantage is Bishop E3, Knight G4, Knight into C6, B into C6. Instead of B into C6, if black plays Knight into E3, Bishop into F7 check, King into Bishop, Queen Bishop 3 check, picks up the Knight. Let us go back and see what are all the other moves. After B into C6, not Bishop into A7, hoping to pick up one of the rooks, not Bishop into E7, hoping to pick up one of the rooks. C5 traps the bishop. After B into C6, but what is actually played is F3. Knight A5, releasing the tension in this way is wrong. Correct is knight into D4. Let us go back and see. Knight into d4, queen into d4, bishop g7, white will have control. But what is played is knight a5, bishop g5, bishop g7, queen d2, h6. A concession, but on 0-0, let us go back and see. On 0-0, bishop h6 followed by h4, followed by h4, h6 produces a strong and mechanical attack. Okay, let us go back and see. After h6, bishop e3, rook c8, castling on queen side. After castling on queen side, black plays knight c4, queen e2. This is totally a new idea at the time. On bishop into c4, let us go back again and see. Bishop into c4, rook into c4, g3. G3 was the usual and good procedure. The text permits black to capture what was considered to be the most important of white's bishops. Okay, let us go back and see what happened in the game. Bronston, a grandmaster watching this game, was so impressed that he gave double exclamatory marks for this move. Another gentleman by name Alexander Koto, the commissioner of chess criticism of the Soviet Union, said this is very difficult to accept with Fischer. Knight into bishop, but not queen c7, knight d b5. So what is played is knight into e3, queen into e3, black castles, Fischer starts pushing his pawns. Timing is very, very important. On h4, let us go back and see. After castling, if we play h4, h5 completely locks it up. Let us go back. What is played is g4. After g4, queen a5 is played. h4, e6. Instead of e6, on h4, let us go back and see. g5, knight e8 gives a strong attack for white after f4, f5. Okay, let us go back and e6 is played. Knight d e2. Black holds out after g5. Let us go back. g5, h into g5, h into g5, knight h5, f4, queen c5, threatening e4. Let us go back. Knight e d2 was the last move played. Rook c6, g5, h into g5. On knight h5, g into h6, bishop f6, f4. f4 continues the pawn stampede. After h into g5, h into g5 is played. Knight h5, f4, rook f c8, king b1. King b1 as an important preparatory move on the immediate 21 f5, e into f5, knight d5, queen into a2 gives black a very good counter play. Let us go back. What is the last move played? Is king b1, queen b6, queen f3. Fischer doesn't like to exchange the queens at this stage. Rook c5, queen d3, several Yugoslavian grandmaster and chess journalists squared towards analyzing room where Martinovich, a Russian grandmaster, was explaining move by move on a demo board. Felt that Fischer has just blundered. More obvious f5 looked good, but black still have resources. On e into f5, rook into h5, if knight d5, queen d8, c into f5, bishop into f5, rook into h5, rook into c2 wins for black. After bishop into f5, after rook into h5, g into h5, knight f4, rook into c3, b into c3, rook into c3, rook f4, rook into c3, b into c3, rook into c3, queen into h5, rook into b3 check, c into b3, queen e3, etc. Let us go back and see. Queen d3 was the last move played. Bishop into c3, knight into c3, not b into c3, bishop b5. After knight into c3, knight into f4 is played. This is what the crowd thought that Fischer has overlooked, but it is not so. Now he plays queen f3, knight h5. On e5, knight e2 is decisive. Therefore, knight h5 is played. Rook into h5, This is an excellent move. G into h5, queen into h5, bishop e8, queen h6, rook into c3, b into c3. If rook h1 now, queen d4 holds. So after b into c3, rook into c3 is played. g6, f into g6, rook h1, queen d4, queen h7 check. Again a mistake. Bishop into pawn, checkmates immediately. After queen h7, black resigns. King f8, queen into bishop mates. If you like this video, please subscribe, share and comment. Thanks for watching. Thanks for your time. Please subscribe so that you can see many more beautiful games of Bobby Fischer like this.